The Shetland Islands, over 100 miles north of the Scottish mainland. Britain's farthest and loneliest fragments.
Well, people say it's wild. I suppose it is.
I mean, many a day you get up in the morning and you get the Four Seasons before lunchtime.
Little communities had a lot more of their own character. Down here in Nesting, where I live now, there were 2 shops. A lot of things have changed.
July 1975. A pipeline is coming ashore. One of 2 undersea lines which will link Shetland to the North Sea's richest known oil reserves. The offshore fields lie over 100 miles to the east, and Shetland is their closest landfall.
Sullom Voe is just a huge place. It's about 1,000 acres of Sullom Voe, nearly 4 decades old, processed about 8 billion barrels, and a huge part of the beautiful Shetland Islands with this oil terminal on it.
The day the oil flows will be a good day for Britain. But what of Shetland? So big a development in a place so isolated and so vulnerable.
Well, it is quite a lot of years ago. As a teenager, I came up to Shetland, as a lot of people did at that time, looking for work. And I found an island with a population of 22,000 approximately, suddenly welcoming, if that's the right word, 3,000 or so construction workers. So it was quite a transformation to Sleepy Hollow Island to suddenly have such an enormous influx of people to build the terminal.
The 2 lines, Brent and Ninian, which will gather oil from 2 groups of fields representing over 30 North Sea interests into the biggest river of crude oil in Europe, now converge on a single terminal.
I stay just where the Ninian pipeline came ashore, just in a few miles in the road for us. So that was the first thing we saw of the oil industry coming to the site. Was they brought the pipe sections in by barge, and then the trucks would go out empty out past the house.
An entire infrastructure to be strengthened, roads to be widened, airport updated, improvements which will be there long after oil has gone.
The whole character and infrastructure of the place was very different nowadays. The main road, the length of the island, was a single-track road with passing places.
The airport's at the very south of the island. It's about 25 miles to Lerwick, and then about another nearly 30 miles to the terminal. When people came up, if they came up at night, in the afternoon, we never sent them up to the terminal till the next day. If they come up in the morning, we only took them up to Lerwick and gave them lunch, and then sent them up. We would never suggest to anybody they drove from Sunbury to the terminal in one go. That gives you an idea of what the roads were like.
I turned up in February 1980, right horrible winter time. And that was a bit of an experience, going to a place with no street lights, no pavements, and the digs we got were first class. That's what made up for it.
Welcome to Harrisley House. Come on in.
It was just like home from home. I mean, Audrey, the girl that actually ran it, couldn't do enough for you.
Used to be a phone there, a public phone the men used. Oh my, they've still got the same chairs. Eesh. Goodness me. Lovely.
May the 9th, 1981. A grey and misty morning. The Royal Yacht Britannia is moving up one of Britain's most northerly inlets. Her Majesty the Queen is coming to the Shetland Islands to inaugurate the Sullom Voe oil terminal.
The most thing I remember was the bulk of the contract guys got a half-day holiday, and it was a Saturday. So you can imagine the mayhem that ensued later on that day.
Now Britannia is anchored out there in the sheltered waters of Sullom Voe. Her Majesty the Queen, accompanied by the Duke of Edinburgh and King Olaf of Norway, is coming ashore in the royal barge.
It was very, very strictly run, and at the time they were just building a brand new engineering workshop for the terminal. So I think there was a company come up from Edinburgh, this was before the machinery was put in, and they draped the whole place out, covered it in carpet, big plant pots, and so the Queen must have thought it was the fanciest workshop she'd ever been in her life.
Meanwhile, after touring the terminal, Her Majesty comes to meet some of the crowd outside the inauguration hall, which, after the ceremony, will become the Engineering Services building.
Oil from the East Shetland Basin is already flowing through this terminal at Sullom Voe, supplying the equivalent of half of Britain's oil needs, soon to be 3/4. I congratulate you on an outstanding achievement and wish you every success for the future.
One of my jobs, of course, was bringing new people in, and I always tried to be realistic about it and not give them a very rosy picture, because I was aware that some of my predecessors had been perhaps a bit imaginative, describing how wonderful life was going to be in Shetland, and I didn't like to bring people up and find that they didn't like it.
Shetland is sea and land in eternal collision. The sea shaping the land, striving to split Shetland into still smaller islands. And from the sea, wind, gale force, 50 days a year.
I think there's an old joke about the local radio station weather forecast, basically saying, you know, rain, sun, hail, fog, all in one day. So you do get a lot of variation, and it can be pretty windy up here. But it's, you know, you do get beautiful weather as well.
And it is easy to forget if you work there and you go there day after day, just what a splendid landscape the terminal sits on. Wildlife, otters, there have been orcas in Sullom Voe, seals, and birds galore.
I remember coming up here for my reconnaissance visit and it just feeling really homely, sort of just driving around the hills, the scenery, the peace and quiet. It just felt like a really nice place to live.
The men would go to their beds in the evening and they'd shout up the stairs, "Good night, Audrey." I'd say, "Good night, so-and-so." A few minutes later, "Good night, Audrey." And again, "Good night, so-and-so." And the ironic thing was, I did marry a Walton, and his name was John.
When it's finished, some £1,200 million will have been spent, and as many as 7,000 men will have worked for 6 years to complete this great complex of pumps, pipes, tanks and jetties in one of the remotest areas of the British Isles.
I enjoyed my time there as a control room operator in the process area, looking after 5 stabilisation trains, 11 flash gas compressors, 3 refridge compressors, gas and liquid drying raw mix systems, 6 fractionation columns, and it's all yours to play with. It's the ultimate toys, I suppose.
I mean, I'm one of the older guys now, but when I came, the older generation would tell you what it was like in their time. So that's how you learn about the place. Now I'm one of the dinosaurs, and I've got the younger generation coming behind me.
The terminal has been operating since late 1978, and some 60 million tonnes of oil have been shipped out since then. When the terminal reaches full capacity, as many as 20 tankers a week will be carrying North Sea oil to market and making a massive contribution to Britain's balance of payments.
In the late 70s, early 80s, it was one in, one out. I came in 1990, we'd still have about 3 a day sometimes then.
We could fill a tank in a shift, so that's about 500,000 barrels we were putting in a tank. And the tanker would come in the morning, we'd berth the tanker, load the tanker, and then probably sail it by the end of shift change.
It was a huge place. At its peak, when I was working there, it was putting through 1.4 million barrels a day. That's an enormous quantity of oil and a very significant contribution to the British economy at the time.
Certainly when I came up, I would have said that 80% of the people working at the terminal, certainly for BP, lived in Shetland, and a lot of them were from Shetland. So there was a kind of a strong local ethic within the place.
I've got Shetland where I was born and bred. You've got guys like myself that have moved in. We've got a guy starting the last 2 years, travels up from Middlesbrough. We spend more time together than we do with our wives and kids and stuff, so you have to get along.
The people are just brilliant, really friendly. You can have a bit of fun with them.
Lots of banter, especially between us Southmouthers, as they call us, and then the locals that live here. So we get a bit of banter about that, about not speaking properly.
Linda might have mentioned a publication called Stony Hill Free Press.
It basically made fun of the management of the terminal and some of the ordinary staff of the terminal as well.
I think it was a great leveller. Everybody was in it, so nobody was safe.
Some of the management used to get quite annoyed at it, but most of them had the sense to realise it was a great thing for the staff morale.
I think it's an important difference between working offshore, where you have no neighbours, you show up for work, you do your 2 weeks and you go away again. It's different when you work at a place like Sullom Voe, which is a part of the community in so many different ways. Not only the fact that so many people work there, but all the other connections, social, cultural, as well as obviously commercial. It's a big part of the community, and it would be a mistake to forget that fact.
I met my wife through it. We met on site, yeah, she worked here as well. Well, she still works here. So it's a family concern.
I'd like to simply say thank you to all the people who work at Sullom Voe now, and of course all the people over that nearly 40 years of history. It's a fantastic place. And looking forward, I just want to say I wish you all the very best. Thank you.